right. So y'all, CK with Bitcoin Magazine. I'm on stage with Mike Hobart, a contributor to Bitcoin Magazine and prolific thinker in the Bitcoin space. Mike has been writing a ton of content for Bitcoin Magazine, and many of his articles kind of show how fiat has corrupted a lot of the aspects of our lives, and kind of illustrates how Bitcoin fixes this. Hence the title of the space. I guess, Mike, do you kind of want to introduce yourself, introduce maybe your mental model, and maybe talk about the couple of articles that we want to talk about on this space in particular?
Ooh, yeah. I don't know how I'm going to describe my mental model, but I guess I could say as far as background, I went to college for exercise and movement science, and I just finished up a brief stint in the Army National Guard as an aviation hydraulic specialist. But as far, I guess that kind of gives a small measure of like my background. Like, I guess if I was going to attempt to give a breakdown of my mental models, I've always kind of just been a first principles thinker. Um, Even when I was a kid, I grew up as a kid, kind of just basically learning in all my free time, and then drawing. So I've got the creative aspect and the kind of analytical or factual aspect as well. But if we wanted to get into my article, the one that I've really wanted to talk about, particularly because it touches a lot of different people across a lot of different demographics, would be my article. Like the very first pinned tweet up the nest. I titled it "Bitcoin Revives the American Dream," and by what I mean by that is if we go back, if we kind of look back into maybe like just post World War II, like the 50s. 50s and 60s are kind of an era that is remembered as being kind of pretty, not, I wouldn't say lucrative, but maybe frivolous would be a good word. It was a time, like looking back, where like a single earner home could afford to purchase a house and a car off of maybe 1 or 2 years salary. And we're to the point now where the dollar has been so debased at such a rapid extreme that we've got young adults going into basically a lifetime's worth of debt to earn a degree that's not going to get them much more than maybe like a manager's role at a grocery store. And it's prevailing in such a like disease, that I call it, that it's to the point where it's not just affecting like the financial and economic aspects of all of our citizens and our neighbors, but it's contributing to rapidly deteriorating physical health, rapidly deteriorating mental or psychological health. It's affecting our relationships. Obviously, like it also is like affecting our diet. Like I'm hoping, I would love to actually hopefully follow in kind of Gladstein's steps at like maybe putting all this together into like a book that I can wrap it into like one big picture. But it's just like the image of that was created the year before the Federal Reserve was made, of an octopus like engulfing and ensnaring every single aspect and industry of American life. It's really quite accurate.
Where's that image from? And I've definitely seen it. It's kind of like an octopus, like reaching into like government buildings and the bank, and kind of like, again, kind of percolating through society. But I guess what's the context there?
I'm not entirely sure. I can't speak with confidence, but the fact, I believe it was a comic that was drawn prior to the Federal Reserve officially like being formulated. Like I think it was just like rumors or an idea or something. I don't fully know the background. We've got Mark and Wicked too. Like if either of them know, by all means speak up. But I'm pretty sure it was just a comic. I don't know how much else or what depth is to the backstory of it.
All right, we'll continue. I apologize for interrupting, but yeah, I mean, kind of what you're saying is that fiat affects every aspect of our lives, and there are consequences to the type of money that we use.
Yeah, because I mean, if we think about it for a little bit here, as far as, so what are the issues that like, because like the way I look at it with Bitcoin provides a monetary unit, a monetary system where it allows the individual to return to savings as a wealth generation vehicle or a wealth generation strategy. And what that does, what like permeates across all levels of society. So like if you consider an individual is capable of simply saving to the point of where the currency that they're saving in isn't being debased out from underneath them, it allows for the individual to build up a cushion of capital that not only provides psychological well-being, because I think if you've ever been like scraping across bedrock or rock bottom in your life, and you're literally living paycheck to paycheck and you're barely making it, you know how much of a difference it makes when you get to the point of where you actually have enough money to where you're not stressing about every single bill every month. What that does is it takes so much stress off other aspects of life. Like maybe that individual can save to the point of where they can purchase a better car so they can reliably get to work, and then it really starts to compound from there. Or an individual is capable of taking some risks in a different aspect of life, or maybe chasing a new hobby to the point of where they feel better about themselves, to the point of where it's reducing the amount of anxiety and depression they're suffering from every day. Or if like the individual wants to go like the health route, and they save up enough to be able to afford that gym membership so they can like start working on their body, and that helps fix up maybe their confidence or their physical health, like if they've got bills or they're concerned in that aspect. And then when an individual is capable of like relieving lots of these stress, it can also contribute to just the kind of soul searching that it seems that like a lot of the Bitcoin community has been able to do, to the point of where they can actually establish real relationships. Because I very much think that the dating world right now, at least in America, is very fiat. Like especially with these crap apps like Tinder, where you're not actually making any meaningful connection with anybody. And going even further down the road, like we can touch on one of my other articles that I wrote about the food industry. There's very serious aspects that Bitcoin can also possibly solve, where we've got issues like we've all been seeing a lot of issues with politics lately. And the problem there is that because the fiat dollar that we're relying on is capable of being politically manipulated and gamed, that we've got politicians voting for stimulus packages to send to money to industries that don't make any sense. And so, like, say for example, one of these industries goes back to the food sector, where there's the potential for poor decisions to be made in politics that don't accurately reflect the nature of the world, which I think we may all agree that some of that has been happening. Um, and there's money going to these zombie corporations that are happen to be the ones that are running the food like industry, that are providing overly heavily processed foods, because they're like, the more processed that a food is, you can more easily manufacture it on an assembly line because it's efficient, get out into the retail market, and they provide all of these different chronic metabolic diseases and issues that cause the populations to become so reliant on the health sector, that the health sector gets so extremely bogged down with all of these just nefariously spread chronic metabolic diseases like type 2 diabetes, like cardiovascular disease, like heart disease, like cancer. Like there's a reason that all of these things are occurring. And you go back and you can point it back to the food, but when you get to the food, you have to point it back to the money, because if it wasn't for the money, none of it would have been really capable of getting so exacerbated. And then when you look at the health sector, because it's so bogged down by all these chronic diseases, you look at the health sector and then you see that all the insurance companies are getting squeezed because inflation is screwing them over, because they hold such a large portion of their capital in treasuries and bonds, that they're also getting squeezed because they have to try and keep up with not with wage inflation, because that hasn't been happening at all, but they have to keep up with inflation, and at the same time, like, they're being pushed out further out onto the risk spectrum as everybody else because they have to try and, cover their percentages that they're guaranteed to their clients. Like, it's just like, I the when we say Bitcoin fixes this, I don't think anybody really understands just like the kind of like chain reaction of healing that it really can start to alleviate. I rambled there for quite a while. So CK, I don't know if you have anywhere you want to take this or what. So by all means, chime in a little bit.
Yeah, well, I would say that you are right in identifying that the average person doesn't understand how fucked the current situation is. And when you look at a lot of the points of leverage that Bitcoiners really resent in our current situation today, all those points of leverage come from, kind of the second and third order effects of, the broken incentive structure that you just described, right? So it's kind of like, um, why is making sure that hospitals don't get overrun so important? Well, because like, the hospital sector is like this extremely important industry, both politically and socially, because of how unhealthy our people are. Okay, well, why are the people so unhealthy? Oh, because they're eating really terrible food. Why is the food so terrible? Well, it's because all of the ranchers and all of the food producers have been subsidized and co-opted by chemical companies and the governments, and they're focused more on scalability and reproducibility and doing something quickly and efficiently rather than well. And then again, we kind of just walk through the downstream effects of that. And you can point it to the money, right? So I mean, I completely agree. And I think what it's hard for people to see the issues, but even if they do see the issues, it's kind of hard for them to see a solution, and how a solution can kind of manifest itself. So that's where I think like you have put out some of the best work, which is like you actually paint like this beautiful vision of healing and this kind of vision for the future.
Yeah, it's like it like going back to like the American reviving the American dream piece. Like it really I don't okay, so for the record, I don't have like really like a family of my own. Like I don't have kids. So when I talk about like kids, it's not like I have like a particular one that like I have a reasoning for. So it really pains me that when we see all of our politicians that are voting to like raise the debt ceiling and take on more like stimulus package like crap and really just piling up all this national debt to the point of where we're literally looking at our children and our children's children and just kind of looking down on them being like, sorry guys, you're fucked. Like we're not even trying to fix the problem. We're just like, oh yeah, the problem's here. It's like everyone's gonna have to deal with it. Like, no, that's that's not the American way. That's not like the human way. Like it's not normal to like just keep stacking on problems without solving them. And it really, really pains me that we're raising generations of children that are growing up in an American education system that is fundamentally flawed. It's not like, and this is another thing, like, this is one of my most recent pieces, actually, like, where I talked about the American education system. It we're not teaching our children to actually think. We're not teaching them to think critically or actually be intelligent. We're teaching them to just memorize what the state has told us, which public school system is government run like education. So I don't know if you don't know that, but if like you should probably look into it. The state is mandating what our children are being taught, and it's not even like I wouldn't even equate it to learning. It's just regurgitation. It's just remembering what an image looks like or what like a string of words means, and not actually critically thinking on like what the source of anything is or the reason, like the first principles thought that we all like so many of us Bitcoiners like to rely upon. And it's causing these individuals to grow up not being capable of really finding out who they are. And if you want to get really spiritual or philosophical about that, like raising entire generations of children to not be capable of like really like kind of searching their souls and finding those passions that they really live for. And like it's hard not to get depressed, but at the same time, like you then you come across Bitcoin, and then you can see where all of this is actually capable of reversing. Um, Makes me personally very hopeful. And I don't know if we want to go into like the education system article, because that one's kind of like that one's extremely dry. But I can say that if you guys read it, I think you'll understand just why the education system is so bad. Or maybe like, because like a lot of us know the how, like how I discussed, like they're not, teaching us how to like actually critically think. But you start to see, it's a really great example of how something can look really positive at the time, but then once it gets gamed out, it becomes a net negative for society.
Let's distill this a little bit more. So, I would love to just kind of like maybe not dig into the education article, but like let's just kind of tap into like you've written, I believe, over 12 articles for Bitcoin Magazine. They all kind of have a similar theme. Do you kind of want to just touch on some of those themes? You talked about petrodollar destroying the American education, monetary independence, how Bitcoin will drain the swamp, why insurance companies need Bitcoin. You kind of talked about Bitcoin revitalizing the American dream, Bitcoin being the successor of violence. Like, I think that there's a pretty clear theme here and a way that you're trying to, I guess, paint this picture of, there's a lot of things that are plaguing society. And again, Bitcoin offers this opportunity to reorient.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I would say the motivation that I have, because like they're all kind of diverse, right? And like they're all different, very different topics and industries. But the real main thread, the reasoning behind why I even started writing was there's one rule that I like to live by, and that's like, and which I guess it's not really a motto, it's just a general rule of life. You can't fix a problem until you acknowledge the problem, and then you identify like really how you got there. And we're kind of in the last couple of years, I mean 2008 was probably the like one of the big ones, but we've had examples that are kind of like showing us what the problems are, but there's still there's vast majorities of society, at least in the American population. I can't really speak to the like the whole globe, but a lot of Americans for the last 15 years or so have been learning about what the problems are, and we're really starting to see them play out thanks to coronavirus. But I don't think we'll actually be able to find the proper solution until we understand, like all of us actually understand how it is we got here. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to kind of establish or maybe bring light to with the articles. That's the whole point, to like kind of breaking down how we got here. Because I I want to see America continue to be a power. I very much enjoy living here, and I'm a patriot. That's why I served. But I don't want us to go the wrong way, thinking it's for the right reasons. And the way things have been going, it definitely feels like we're going the wrong way, but for the right reasons. And I honestly do think Bitcoin will be like, it'll give us the power to hopefully do that. And this is how I say hopefully, because this is something I wrote about in my Perception of Time article, that Bitcoin is neutral. It's just a tool. I don't think it is a intrinsic good, because even like evil hands could still do great evil with Bitcoin. Um, I think that's an aspect that the Bitcoin community needs to get a little more honest about. Um, so like I'm really hoping to like point out a lot of these issues, so like we can all see like the both the good and the bad side.
Well, I would push back that Bitcoin is a mirror and Bitcoin doesn't care. So There's not a bad side to Bitcoin. Maybe there's a bad side to humanity, but
Yes, that's a good.
Bitcoin's just straight neutral, and
Yeah,
I mean that's why it's good money.
yeah, exactly. And like that's the ultimate value in Bitcoin, right? Because it's the what is it? What's the saying? It's the money of enemies.
Yeah,
Um,
Bitcoin is for enemies.
yeah, and that's also why I'm hesitant when I talk about the United States, like maybe not co-opting Bitcoin, but using it. Is that just because it's the U.S. using it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good or a bad thing. Ultimately, Bitcoin is good for the individual, but I do still worry about members of the community that are like that even advocate for single issue voters. I don't like that because that kind of brings up the potential for an Elon Musk style situation, but with politicians. And politicians, I think we could argue, have too much power, especially if they were to gain the type with Bitcoin. Like it's just not something that I want to see happen. And ultimately, it goes back to I don't want to see people get hurt. I think we could all agree that politicians, Bitcoin, whatever, it like there's a lot of power to be had here. And I hope that my articles can help bring some attention to the real problems so that we can hopefully start to fix them.
Yo, what is going on, plebs? We're going to take a break from our programming to tell you about the resurrection of our print magazine, starting with the El Salvador issue. Starting this fall, Bitcoin Magazine will be available on newsstands nationwide and at retail stores such as Barnes and Noble. Don't want to get off your couch, though? No problem. You can also go to store.bitcoinmagazine.com. So skip the line and get each issue shipped directly to your front door with our annual subscription. I'm talking 4 issues a year that contain exclusive interviews and profiles with leading Bitcoiners, actionable insights on the state of the market, breaking news, and cultural trends, along with powerful photos and artwork from the best artists in the world. Subscribe today and get 21% off using code podcast at checkout. That's PODCAST podcast at checkout.
So, in your opinion, like, what are the real problems?
The real problems are the individual citizen, like whether you're poor in the gutter or you're middle, like average middle class, what have you. The individual needs to be able to save in like be able to save their money in a hard asset like Bitcoin that isn't capable of being stolen out from underneath them or debased away from underneath them, because ultimately the time that we sacrifice for our money is the most important, in my opinion, because money is like basically is a kind of like a direct representation of time. And the average individual needs to be able to save in an asset like that so they can put forth their life energy and their time towards something that can help make their life a little bit better. And then at the same time, we need, like, the most important is the, like, really kind of, I would say, the health aspects that come along with that. Because that kind of touches like that. I think that would solve the largest number of problems for the U.S. and in really the world ultimately. But yeah, I would have to say the most important aspects are the physical and mental health of the well-being that is gained from the low time preference thinking and the Bitcoin asset, but then also the capability to save as an individual and really rescue the mental health of an entire society. I think we could all rally behind both of those points.
So, just to try to poke at this a little bit more, why is saving necessary for an individual's mental health?
Okay, so consider you're working at a job that is just keeping up with minimum wage inflation, and you're working in an area where even if you're getting 40 or 50 hours a week, you're barely earning enough to like have an excess of $5 or $10. If you start, if you're saving in something like in that moment, if you were to come across Bitcoin and you were capable of saving, maybe $5 a week, adds up what to like $20 a month to like $240 a year. Well, what if you're saving that $240 a year, but you're saving it in Bitcoin and it's averaging 200% annually, like 200% CAGR, a couple years, and you can save up enough to maybe get, a better car so you can get a better job that's a little bit farther outside your commute. And then like you can start like uplifting yourself that way, or saving up enough to, and maybe you're like a handyman and you purchase like a nice like crescent wrench set so you can start doing some like excess work on the side to like, increase your income, because sometimes budgeting isn't the right way out. Sometimes you can't budget any more of your life to the point of it being a benefit. Sometimes you have to find another side hustle or another way to monetize your like whatever excess time you can afford. I don't see how a single person can't see the value in an asset like that. I don't know. Like if you can bring up a counter argument, but I don't think any logical, rational individual could say that's a negative.
I mean, there were some folks earlier today, some blue checks talking about how someone holding value for 100 years without actually like doing anything to maintain that value doesn't seem right. I think it was like Joe Weisenthal and Adam Singer who were kind of like going back and forth on it. I mean, that seems like it's an opinion that's held within like this more elite financial class. What would be your response to that?
So what was like? I missed the conversation. What was the argument that like you could
The,
save an
the
asset
yeah,
for?
the argument is that you like just I guess the idea of a money that doesn't lose value over time, especially a very extended period of time, um, is immoral and bad for society.
Oh, it's immoral. That sounds absolutely asinine. What like because like is the moral claim that like because it's not being spent, you're a bad person?
Well, no, the claim that they're like doing nothing but holding to preserve their value is not enough. That you actually should be putting in additional work to preserve your value over an extended period of time.
So forcing somebody into servitude, like I like that I I would have loved to have heard this conversation because that like sounds fundamentally flawed to me. Like,
I believe Vitalik made a similar argument before too. It's that like, just hoarding money over time and having that money not lose any value is bad for society because you're not putting in incremental additional work.
yet they're trying to put in proof of stake into Ethereum, and he has that kind of argument. Like, what? Like,
So just break it down. Break it down. Why is that mentality wrong? Why is it important that a money holds its value over time?
oh man, that's it's important that a money holds value over time because it, oh dude, like the mental gymnastics here are like literally putting me into like a mental bind. Okay, so the argument is from you were saying Joe Weisenthal, maybe Vitalik, I don't know. But the argument here is that you should be forced into putting forth effort into society in order to be like a like an effective or a positive member of society. Um, I don't understand the claim because like I can't even like grasp or conceptualize why someone would want to hold a money or an asset that is depreciating over time. Like okay, so spending time is priceless or it's invaluable, right? Because we never get any time back. But when you sacrifice your time for an income or a wage, you're you're making a trade on your time for the compensation that you're receiving. And I don't think it is like immoral for an individual to essentially save up their time for a greater purchase later. I that's like the ultimate sacrifice. That's the ultimate like pushing off gratification. I don't know what greater moral good you could have. Besides maybe saving up that time and then putting it forth to like greater help society in another like fashion later. To claim that somebody continuing to profit off of saving their time, I don't understand. I don't understand the like how you could make that claim. Like it just doesn't seem like fair to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I forgot who made this example, but I guess the idea is if you have earned money, like you've already taken, I think it was Parker Lewis. If you have earned money, you've already taken risk, you've already put in work, and
Yeah,
therefore, why should you have to put in additional work and risk in order to maintain the value of that money?
yeah.
And
It
go
sounds
for it.
almost like a societal theft of the individual. Like, hey, you did a good job of budgeting your risk management and your time, but fuck you. We're going to take that time away over time. Like, over a duration, we're going to siphon it away in the form of inflation because your time is not valuable to us. That's basically what it's saying. In a society that doesn't value the individual's time, is a society that treats the individual like cattle.
And I mean, hey, we want a society that treats cattle very, very well, in my opinion. Garrett, what is up, my man? Welcome to the stage. And yeah, I mean, just to talk about the cattle, our society does not treat cattle very well these days, and you can talk about how that has downstream effects too.
Oh yeah. If I were to talk about that ultimately though, I'd be talking out of place. Like that'd be something for Untapped Growth or Texas Slim or I don't know, like one of those two guys would definitely be a better voice for talking about cattle and ranching.
All right, let's pass it to Garrett.
Hey, thanks for having me. I just wanted to say one of my favorite things about Bitcoin is the way it changes the way we view the world and the way we think, and kind of changes the financial incentives that um, guide our thinking and motivate our thinking. Just like, for example, we all know that, maybe a study on lung cancer that's funded by a tobacco company might have some misaligned motives to it, and we can kind of, consider the results of that study accordingly. And I think Bitcoin, in a way, kind of decentralizes our financial incentives when it comes to the way we think. Like, we've seen a lot of studies on COVID, and we've seen a lot of studies on inflation recently. And a lot of the funding for those studies is coming from the federal government. And we don't necessarily always think about how, the incentives of the researchers that are funded by the federal government, might be affecting the outcome of those studies. So I think Bitcoin's really cool because it gives economists and researchers the freedom to think with more decentralized financial incentives, whether that's crowdsourced or, whether having an economist on Twitter that's taking tips over the Lightning Network. It just gives people more freedom of thought, which I think is really lacking.
Exactly. I agree with you, Garrett. And that's kind of what I was mentioning with how like deep Bitcoin's effect can be within a society of like really kind of releasing that um mental, like psychological and philosophical and spiritual and emotional kind of freedom for every individual to really start to like branch out and find out who they are. I definitely agree with you.
And so many of the, figures or just people we might meet in our everyday life who are disregarding Bitcoin or ignoring it are often, financially incentivized to ignore it because it disrupts their stream of income or their boss's stream of income. And they're so aligned with their boss's stream of income that they can't wrap their head around something that isn't also aligned with, where their income's coming from. So yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest problems we have is that people are kind of caught up in these thought patterns that are, driven from financial incentives, and having a decentralized financial system does more than just protects people's resources that they worked for. It also realigns the thinking behind those, or the financial incentives behind their thinking. And so for me, one of the biggest problems with the world is how people's ways of thinking are so wrapped up with financial incentives, and just realigning those incentives or decentralizing the incentives really opens things up for more constructive thinking.
And then it allows for society as a whole to kind of fix the misallocated capital that we've got going on right now. It's like there's a lot of misallocated capital to like the industries that don't need the help necessarily. Like, I don't know if you guys saw the breakdown of this latest stimulus bill that has been proposed. I think it was like $1 trillion, and only like 2 billion of that is going to agriculture. But like our farmers are like have completely like they can't get the tractors that they need because they're having the same issue as like the automobile like industry, and they've been getting squeezed as far as the livestock ranching and like the actual agriculture, like as far as like corn, soybeans, and then regenerative like farming and all that stuff. Like
Absolutely.
there's some aspects of society that really actually need to be fixed. And it's not mandating vaccines. It's getting people like physically healthy with providing like better food.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And pushing our society to be physically active and more healthy in that regard. Like we do that, and we don't just like kick this quote unquote pandemic that we're going through, but like we also kick the other issues that are comorbidities for what's going on.
Yeah.
And you do that, you free up the healthcare system directly. Like our doctors and our nurses, I am honestly amazed at how aggressive the nursing school and job market has remained, because it's very female dominant, and those ladies like work their asses off. Like they get absolutely driven into the ground working like 16-hour 18-hour days, and there's still like tons of people still rushing to be nurses. Like imagine a world where our healthcare system got so relieved, because I could tell you like just anecdotally, my first year at university, I worked at the hospital that is tied with the university I attended. And as a student, I was really kind of just stocking like the operating rooms. But as part of like kind of like as a perk of that job, you could just see operations that were going on. So I saw there was one of my favorites was called a free flap, where they would be rebuilding the facial structure of the patient. And in order to do that, you have to literally cut off the face of the individual and kind of like just roll it over so they can work on the bones and the musculature and everything. And like so like literally the individual's face is kind of like just sitting on a plate right next to him. I can tell you that like as part of that job, I was kind of privy to like without violating any HIPAA regulations. I could just see the types of procedures that people were coming in for, and from my own experience at the time, it was anywhere from 85 to 95% of the conditions that were coming through were caused by chronic metabolic diseases. And if this were like if we just use this as a standard today, like if that's the case today, imagine the kinds of financial and time value relief our entire country could receive, because 95% of the demand or the workload on the hospital system was reduced to like 65%. Like it was reduced by 30%. I can't imagine the how much good that would do, to where you have that many less people being.
Nah, Mike. There's a lot of people making a lot of money on the current system, so I don't know if that's actually going to fix things, because then they'd be out of jobs and out of contracts and all that stuff.
Yeah, but the actual side
I'm
to
just
that,
fucking with you. I'm just.
I know,
But there's a lot of inertia to stop what you're saying. Like that's why you need something like Bitcoin to completely break the system.
Yeah, but that is a good thing to bring up though, because that is one of the main detractors to kind of like technological advancement, right? Is that it'll destroy jobs. That's not true. Like,
Well, I loved what you said about the infrastructure spending bill, because such a small part of it is going towards agriculture, like you said. But I just made me think about what percentage of that bill would be going to agriculture if it was if that funding was collectively directed by Bitcoiners. I think everyone is interested in putting better food in their bodies. And if that bill was being, I guess, democratically or just collectively collectively spent, I think a much larger part of it would be going towards agriculture, and way less of it would be going towards uh, the other crap that's in there. I don't even want to go into that.
well, that's the other thing too, is these bills are 4,000 pages, or at least that the big one, the big stimulus bill was. It's like, who's
Yeah,
who's gonna read that, or nobody wants to read that.
yeah,
But
and if it was, Bitcoiners or individuals guiding the spending, it would be going towards. I think intuitively, people like to think it would be going towards things that would be improving their health, like good food. So maybe, maybe the Pete Buttigieg and those guys who are in charge of the discretionary spending on the infrastructure bill, they don't, they may think that they have all of our interests, at the forefront of their minds. But I think letting individuals make those decisions about what is best for them would lead to, spending on our infrastructure that actually does support things like agriculture.
well, and Garrett, even like politics aside, when the individual is capable of actually saving as a wealth generation strategy, if you're capable, if you're saving and you're trusting your savings vehicle, like it's almost impossible to be nihilistic, which I think we would all agree is that American society as a whole right now is quite heavily nihilist. Like then, and that's bleeding into like the lifestyle and food choices that people are making every day. Like if you're a nihilist, you're not trying to get better health wise. You're not trying to make better food choices or better lifestyle decisions.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that during the lockdown, right? With it seemed like people just wanted to burn things down, and I know so many people that I grew up with who thought it was cool to just kind of want to tear down society. And like, of course, there's certain aspects that like we know, like as Bitcoiners, I know there's a lot of like kind of anarchic capitalists, and we do want to kind of change the system. But so many people are nihilists as well, and just kind of don't see any hope, and don't believe in anything. And we
And
just kind of
that's
saw all
and
the craziness come out during lockdown.
My fellow plebs, the Bitcoin conference is back. Bitcoin 2022, April 6th through the 9th, is the ultimate pilgrimage for the Bitcoin ecosystem. The Bitcoin conference is the biggest event in all of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. We're leveling up and making this bigger and better than ever. I'm talking straight to the moon with the 4-day long festival in the heart of Miami at the Miami Beach Convention Center. This has something for everyone. Whether you're a high-powered Bitcoin entrepreneur, a core developer, or a Bitcoin newbie, Bitcoin 2022 is the ultimate place for you to be with your people and celebrate and learn about the Bitcoin culture. So make sure to go to b.tc/conference to lock in your official tickets and use promo code Satoshi for 10% off. You want more off? Pay in Bitcoin and you'll receive $100 off general admission and $1,000 off Whale Pass. Those are stackable. So go to b.tc/conference and attend the best conference in Bitcoin history. Yo, my fellow Bitcoin lovers, have I got something specifically curated for you? The Deep Dive is Bitcoin Magazine's premium markets intelligence newsletter. This isn't some paid group shilling buy and sell signals. No, this is a premium Bitcoin analysis led by Dylan LeClaire and his team of analysts. They break down in an easily digestible way what is happening on chain, in the derivatives markets, and in the greater macro backdrop context for Bitcoin. This newsletter turns volatility into a joke. So hit up members.bitcoin.magazine.com and use promo code podcast for 30% off the deep dive. That's members.bitcoinmagazine.com, promo code podcast for 30% off. Divorce your pay group and learn why Bitcoin is the strongest asset by Dylan and LeClaire and his team.
Hey, so real quick, we have about 13 minutes left. We have Wicked and D++ on stage. I'm curious what y'all have to contribute to the conversation, and then maybe we can kind of give Mike the last 5 minutes to close it out. Let's go with D++. What's up, girl?
Good morning. It looks like I just joined a conversation about Bitcoin fixes this. I literally
Strange morning. Where is it morning?
Austin, Texas.
I was going to say maybe in Hawaii.
Yeah, it's the makeshift citadel, although we're battling Bitcoin Magazine's Nashville. So we're going to see who wins out.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think Austin is way ahead, but come next year, you better watch out because Nashville's coming up for sure.
Well, I'm nomadic, so I'll be there. I'm having a pretty good day. I'm happy to be here. I just have like excruciating FOMO about not being in El Salvador right now, and I'm just trying to deal with that reality. And I'm gonna do some pay to taproot spends to kind of cheer myself up. So that'll be fun. I'm in the process of upgrading some of my wallets. I know that Sparrow, which is actually my favorite desktop wallet, and Moon, which is a great mobile wallet, are both supporting pay to taproot addresses. So I'm going to have a fun day, and I'm going to distract myself from the fact that I'm not in El Salvador.
All right. Well, hey, let's go to experiment with taproot. That's awesome. And Austin is awesome. Wicked, you've been listening in on the conversation from the beginning. Do you have any comments on kind of what Mike and Garrett have been riffing on?
Yeah. Thanks for having me up here. So one thing that I wanted to comment on was this idea that we were talking about the blue checks, saying how Bitcoin is immoral or bad, and that it might cause, people to not spend their money. It might, I guess, kind of this idea of like, money in the mattress, right? We hear this all the time. Economists tend to think that a deflationary money will be bad in this way. But I think this argument is just completely disingenuous, and it falls flat. And the reason why is because all these fucking blue checks, they're doing the same thing, but just in different appreciating assets. So, I mean, they already know that, cash is trash. And so they put their money in, real estate or stocks or what have you. And so they're already doing what we want to do with Bitcoin. It's just that Bitcoin makes it a lot easier. So really, when they're saying those types of arguments, all they're saying is that they don't want poor people and dumb people to save. That's really it. And so I think that it's like, it's fucking bullshit when they say that kind of stuff.
Mike, react.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this even earlier today. I probably think about it every couple of days, to be honest. Like an easy aspect to kind of detail it, which is an aspect that not many people are aware of, is that our own banks, if they keep cash on hand, it's not an asset on their balance sheet. It's a liability because of inflation. So like they're incentivized to just jack up the debt that they're issuing because that's a liability for them because it's earning them a yield. So like just
the debt is an asset. The debt is an asset, and the cash on hand is a liability.
Yeah, exactly. And like,
man, just that's like backward.
Just understanding that, you're like, okay, this system's fucking broken. Because like, if your own banks like aren't incentivized to hold cash, which is like basically their job of protecting their constituents' funds, like I that's where like Wicked said it a lot better than I could, because I was just getting so frustrated with that proposal that it's a moral bad for people to save. Like it's just completely asinine. Like
it's a moral bad for people to save effectively.
Yeah,
You can
dude.
save ineffectively, but that's good.
Like, duh, that there's so much wrong with that, like that philosophy. I see Sovereign just hopped up, and I know that I really value his points. So like, Sovereign, is there anything that you wanted to add, dude?
Hey man, I just popped in. Sorry, I missed most of the talk here, but yeah, just in terms of debt-based fiat monetary systems, it really blew my mind. What really, it didn't really hit home until I read The Creature from Jekyll Island, and it just drives home the fact that our monetary system as it stands right now literally cannot grow or cannot exist unless the total amount of debt continually increases in the system every single day. And it's just crazy to me to think that we have to keep increasing the overall debt load of the world's economy to keep the system afloat. And it's just, in my opinion, completely ridiculous and morally wrong.
And unsustainable.
Which is ooh, I was gonna say which is probably more important, but I don't know if I really fully believe that, because
The fact that it's not sustainable. Well,
yeah,
the funny thing is that the fact that it's not sustainable or it creates these booms and busts, like that's what effectively adds a lot of volatility to the system. And the ironic thing is that a lot of people look at Bitcoin and say, "Oh, Bitcoin's too volatile," but we all know that Bitcoin is short term volatile for long term stability, and
that's
yeah.
actually
On the flip side, yeah.
That's a really good point, because it's volatile, maybe in the price against these flailing fiat currencies, but the overall effective strategy is not volatile. It's everybody just saves, just save, you'll be fine. Like, that's it. It's not volatile in philosophy, it's just volatile in maybe price.
And it's volatile in fiat. So hey, we got 6 more minutes. I want to give you a platform to just rant and close this one out. I guess handing it back to you. How would you want to close this one out and maybe leave the audience with something to think about?
Okay, something to think about is, so I think we would all agree that the greatest good that can be accomplished from Bitcoin's inevitable rise is that we reach as many souls as we can, as far as like helping people understand the importance of Bitcoin. Like, we don't need we don't need to like really pressure somebody into getting like putting money into it before they understand it or value it. But the more souls that we can touch with it, in the sense of they really fully grasp how important this asset is, like to the like humanity as a whole, um the better off that we're gonna, like, as a whole, like, kind of global society be. Because during this process, like I said, how Bitcoin is like, CK and I both mentioned that Bitcoin is just a tool. It's a currency of enemies. That also implies that, like, the less good people that we help with this asset, with this lifeboat, the more bad people that have, like, space to maybe push things in a bad way. So really kind of reaching to those middle and lower class friends and like family members that really could use the help of just having an asset that completely changes the savings dynamic, can really, really have some literally life-changing lives, or life-changing effects on lives, to the sense of, um, we won't just all make it, but we'll all be able to, like, touch our neighbors' lives in a way that, like, really kind of, it gets pretty romantic and philosophical. And I think that everybody should really experience that at least one time in your life, because it'll change everything. Um, I really kind of experienced some of that in my time in the military, and I can't express enough how important it is that we help as many of our kind of like innocent neighbors in our like this global kind of fight against fiat like currency and governments. Um, yeah, like, just really understand the social dynamics of just how important savings can be. and we can really save a lot of lives in this fight.
I feel like it's a pristine tool that enables idealism, whereas fiat is a dysfunctional tool that enables cynicism.
Yeah, and if we don't do this kind of soul searching, like collectively, well, not collectively, because that kind of like that gets into the weeds of some bad stuff, but like as a group, if we can all kind of like do this soul searching together, it really paints a picture of a future that I very much want to be a part of, and a future that I would be very proud to say I was part of helping sculpt. And I think a lot of you guys would agree.
All right, y'all. This is a great conversation. We have another Twitter Spaces coming up tonight with Dylan and Sam from the Deep Dive team to talk about the market. But until then, keep an eye out for everything else Bitcoin Magazine. Keep an eye out for everything that Mike drops on Bitcoin Magazine. And go to Bitcoin 2022. Check out Bitcoin is Venice. All those things. Peace.
Thanks
A lot, Mike.
Yep. Thanks, CK.
Cheers, guys.